Hello, disco friends. Have you ever climbed the corporate ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong building? Same. In this episode, we sit down with Jennifer Spencer, former Fortune 100 exec turned intuitive coach, medium, and co-founder of Pause and Expand, the wellness company bringing brainwave recalibration and joy realignment to boardrooms everywhere. Say that 5 times fast. We discuss with Jennifer her own spiritual awakening and the deprogramming that's sometimes necessary to come into being the person you feel you truly are. She opens up about leaving behind the titles and KPIs, key performance indicators, if you don't speak the lingo, to help other people slow down, drop in, and actually feel aligned in what they're doing with their lives. And in the new post-COVID era of corporate business, how more leaders and professionals are waking up, why intuition is the new executive skill set, and how sound therapy might just be the next team offsite. So take a peek, have a listen, review the notes, and follow up with your thoughts. Is an EOD deadline realistic? No? No problem. We'll extend that and give some grace. Looking forward to working together.
Disco, the podcast.
Disco, the podcast.
Jennifer, welcome to Disco. I speak for both of us, so excited to talk to you today. You've got a very unique background, very unique skill set, and I know our listeners are going to love it too. So thank you.
So excited to be here. So I want to start right off the bat. We know what you do on a very surface level, but we want to understand how you describe what it is that you do, your gifts, your title. If in your own words, you could share what it is that you do.
Yeah, of course. So I'm a spiritual medium and an intuitive coach. And it's funny saying that now, because if you had asked me 5 years ago what you do, I would have said I'm a VP of marketing at a company. Yeah. And so what's interesting with my journey and my path is this has been a process of really stepping more into my purpose. And I spent over 20 years working in the corporate world. So I was a VP of marketing by the age of 35 and thought that that was my life purpose and that was what I wanted to do with my career. And then in 2017, I was on a contract. It didn't get renewed. And I had a moment of, who am I if I'm not this VP of marketing at this corporate company? And I went to a retreat in Costa Rica, and I came back a completely different person. I was not the same at all. I had what we call a spiritual awakening, and it was the beginning of my journey. And I started to really question who I was and why I'm here and what is the work I really want to do in the world. And that kind of started a whole journey of, therapy and plant medicine and breath work and meditation and all of these modalities that a lot of us will speak about in the spiritual world. And shortly after, in 2020, I met my partner a few years earlier. And we realized in that moment, and for a lot of us in the pandemic, I think we really questioned who we are and what we're doing. Yeah. We decided to start a company called Pause and Expand, and it's a wellness company. And so we realized there was an opportunity for us to take our skills as leaders, as people in the corporate world that know and understand that language very well, and start to help people to support their well-being during the pandemic. So we started that, and I think we're on our 5th year now running Pause and Expand. So we work with Fortune 500 companies all around the world doing wellness programming. And then about a year and a half ago, so I've always been interested in spirituality. About a year and a half ago, my partner Steve said to me, "So when are you going to start putting your videos on the internet?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he's like, "You know that you got to start sharing your voice more, right? And teach them what you really know." And I completely started, even when I think about it, it makes me sweaty thinking about it. And I had a moment of, why am I not doing that? And so just woke up one day and said, okay, I'm going to practice and I'm going to start sharing some of the things I know about spirituality. And so I started doing that, and it started going viral, and I started getting more and more followers, to the point that I thought my account was actually hacked or something was wrong. And I stepped into my gifts as a spiritual medium. So it's a journey that I've sort of been doing on the side for my whole life. It activated when my mom passed away in 2008, and I started learning more and more through my spiritual awakening about these modalities. And there was just a day where it clicked, and I decided this is who I am. And it's been the most exciting. I can't tell you, even just talking about it, it just makes me feel like I'm doing what I'm here to do in the world.
Wow. I feel like there can't be anything more just like affirming for you than getting the response that you are from being online and putting your voice out there. I imagine that was probably scary. I mean, I know just being in the position that we are right now and the thought of putting myself out there on social media a little bit more and being vulnerable about the things that are real and true to us, but maybe not everybody knows about because this part of us isn't always like face forward. I imagine that was a little bit scary, but then you get the response that you do, and it's just got to be like, this is a yes that I'm getting from the universe, and that's got to be just so rewarding.
Yeah. I mean, I will say there's a lot of work that I've had to do to get to this point in terms of letting go of there's a whole journey that I'm learning through the work that I'm doing with people as well in letting go of the beliefs of who we thought we were supposed to be and allowing us to actually step into who we are. And that requires a lot of deprogramming of the validation and the way that we think that we're supposed to feel about success and what love looks like and all of these different paradigms and beliefs that we've been taught to think are true. And for me, it was a journey of through my process of stepping into my gifts as a spiritual medium, really recognizing that even if half of the people that follow me don't like what I do, or if I start getting people that don't appreciate or don't believe that spiritual mediums are real, there's a huge number of people that do. And the fact that you can help that many people is the reason, is the purpose, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the spiritual awakening. I know that spiritual awakenings can, I don't know, do they look different? What did your spiritual awakening look like, and what can people expect if this starts to happen to them?
Yeah, and you mentioned Costa Rica. Like, does what happened in Costa Rica stay in Costa Rica? Can you tell us about that like pivotal moment?
Give us the story.
And you also mentioned 2008 was after your mom passed, and that's when things started to come online for you. That was before, I think you said 2017 was Costa Rica. Yeah. So like you're still working in the corporate world for like a decade, before that happened. So take us through that journey and what you learned.
Yeah. So really, to me, spiritual awakenings are interesting because there's a lot of talk about it in the spiritual world. And one of the things that I really try to do is demystify some of these concepts and kind of break them down. To me, a spiritual awakening is just opening up to your purpose and why you're here. So I believe that when we decide to come and embody human form, right, we're souls that are, if you've ever watched that movie Soul, it's exactly that. It's, you decide to come here and you embody a human form. As you come here, you have lessons that you're here to learn. And when we go through the awakening process, oftentimes it's usually a result of something big that's happened. I call them inflection points. So for me, the loss of my mom at a very young age at 28 was one of those inflection points for me. So that started the journey of me questioning a little bit more of the work I was doing. I started to have to work through the loss, the grief, all of that experience. And then, other things can provoke it as well. You can go through a divorce or the loss of a job. So again, another inflection point in 2017, I lost my job. And so that was a moment where I had to go, who am I if I'm not the VP of marketing? And so when I went to Costa Rica, I realized there was all these people. It was a retreat I did through Lee Harris, who's a pretty well-known spiritual teacher. And there was a lot of just different self-exploration of asking those bigger questions. And through that process, you realize you can't really unsee what people are asking you. You can't unsee what you've already seen, right? And so another piece of that for me was also when I started to awaken in 2017, I started to question where my mom was on the other side. And so I started to meet people who had done this work and started to open up to their gifts and being able to talk to people on the other side, receive signs, receive synchronicities, receive messages. And so when I started to be able to do that with my mom, you kind of ask yourself, well, what can't I do? If I can talk to somebody that's on the other side and I can clearly know that that's this person. And my family even started to realize at that point when I was sharing some of the stories that I was experiencing about the signs and synchronicities, they were like, like my dad, who's a type A accountant, was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird. Then it happens again. You're like, well, that's even weirder. How come it keeps happening? And so I think that part of the awakening journey is when you see and get to experience these amazing moments of there's something bigger here than yourself, you just keep going and activating that journey. So it's just been a process ever since of me continuing to strip away who I've been taught to be and ultimately step into who I really am.
Somebody, I feel like we're at different stages of spiritual awakenings ourselves. It's hard to know where you're at. I mean, there's no goal, there's no place you're going, but like, how does somebody get there? Can they speed it up? Do you have to do plant medicines? Do you have to can you just sit in meditation a lot? Like, I know it's probably different for everybody, but what guidance would you have for somebody that feels like they're in one of these transition points and, maybe just starting?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I continuously come across, especially in the work I'm doing with people, is that there's a deep loneliness that comes with the journey of awakening. So when you start to question, I don't know if the people I work with are the people I really want to be around, or I don't know if I'm in the right relationship, or I just lost someone really important to me and I don't actually know how to grieve what just happened. The biggest thing for me is to remember that you're not alone in the journey, because a lot of us go through these processes. We've been taught all of these things about how we're supposed to show up. And then when that doesn't feel real anymore, we feel like we've almost lost ourselves. So for me, going to Costa Rica to this retreat, and it doesn't really matter, you could be doing breath work or meditation or plant medicine, whatever that looks like for you. It's really about finding communities of people and finding people that are also in a similar experience. So that's why the retreat for me was super helpful, because it was the moment I looked around the circle, of 30 people that were there, and I said, oh my God, there's other people that are feeling this way too. And as we continue to keep awakening, I think you're noticing a lot more post COVID, basically, that more and more people are having these deeper questions of the why. And so I will always say, use your intuition. If you're feeling drawn to a certain modality, there's no specific route you need to go. But the most important thing is that you're trusting yourself on your journey and you're not just doing something because you think that that's what the next step is, because it's going to look very different for every person that goes through this.
I think that's such good advice and so simple. You wouldn't necessarily think to just say surround yourself with community, because there are people. And I think that was a hard transition for me, and is still a hard transition for me, but one that I'm learning now. I'm starting to immerse myself in more communities that have, like-mindedness. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many more of us than I even realized. And the community is there if you want it to be. So that, I think it's really good advice. So how does this then influence, your relationship with source, and, where are you at today spiritually? What is that relationship like when you're, doing the work that you do? How do you maintain it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, when I was, it was probably around 2019. So it's almost like a stepping stone as I'm going through this in my mind of like the different steps that I went through. Yeah. It was almost like, okay, there's the retreat, and then there was the job loss, and then there was another school that I went to, and then there was plant medicine journeys in that mix. So it's interesting to sort of look through the roles that each of these different places and experiences have played. But I went to a school in Georgia. It's called Delphi, and it's a spiritual school. Basically, I describe it as it's like the Hogwarts for humans, like for real people. And I took my partner. He had heard about it from one of his therapists, and I said to him, we got to go to this place. And he's like, I feel like it's super weird. And I said, I know, that's why we got to go.
Yeah.
And so we show up at this place in the middle of Georgia, and we're just like fish out of water, like no clue what to expect. And I remember the two of us being on the plane coming home and going, what the hell just happened there? Like, what was that? And so they teach you things like, you learn how to talk to the other side. You learn what energy is. You understand how to channel through art and different modalities of like just channeling energy that isn't from your mind, but actually is from your heart. And the biggest thing that I learned while I was studying there, and what I now believe, is that when we are connected to source, we are in the energy of love. That's the whole point. You're here to be in the energy of love and to basically take away any of those barriers or blocks that are preventing you from being in that energy. So for me, when I work with clients, I now realize my role is not to solve their problems. My role is to create a space for them to know that the answers have already been with them this entire time. Yeah. And what I'm learning more and more in this co-creative process is that when you realize that you are the creator of your reality and you actually are, you are love, you are source, you are everything, you are God. You start to empower yourself to realize that everyone is a mirror of you. You can always come back to your own compassion and your own softness when you're going through something really hard or when you're moving through grief. And you realize that you can start to manifest the life that you want because you're every role that's being played. You're like the main actor of your movie, right? And I think that that's been my biggest aha moment, that actually is what's helped me step into my work as a medium, is I'm creating this whole thing. So if I don't feel connected to being a VP of marketing, well, who do I want to be? Like, what is the role I want to take on now? And the more you step into love, the more that's going to feel like a yes. It should feel like a yes. And if it's not, keep looking, because eventually you'll get there.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's so refreshing to hear, like, you went to Delphi, you're like, what is this? I feel like we come from marketing as well. I work in brand strategy. Michelle works in media.
It's funny. I feel like a lot of people make that transition from marketing and then they get burnt out and they're like, give me God.
Yeah, but it's easy to feel like an imposter, or like you're having to posture, because there's always somebody more spiritual than you or further along, and like, so it's easy to feel like I might never get there, or like to apply pressure. So, it's refreshing to hear from where you sat now that at one point you were just like the rest of us that were like,
which I still am, by the way. I mean, the funny thing is, and the more that I keep learning, is what's funny is when you realize that everyone's mirroring something to you. I'm going through an experience of just kind of reconciling some of the grief that I've experienced over my life and starting to get more connected to that, because one of the biggest things about being a medium is also helping people through that energy of grief. Mm-hmm. And what I'm learning is, as I ask spirit and the universe, help me understand how to move through the energy of grief, who are the people that keep showing up for the one-on-one readings? Oh, they're all people going through grief, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost this really cool evolution of teaching that we all put each other through, of we're mirroring each other. So I'm always learning from people that I am supporting, because they're always teaching me and I'm always teaching them.
That gives me the shivers. Yeah. It's these things that to be aware of and you don't necessarily think about. Anybody just walking through their day to day, you're not like meeting people and reflecting on how they might be mirroring something back to you. But it truly is the case. With your clients and the people that you're working with, do you have any standout experiences, or even like the first, your first client? What was that like? What are you feeling? I mean, you're questioning yourself. Like, how do you know? How can you say with certainty? What is that like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's be honest, the first session I ever did, I'm like freaking out fully. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I should give this person a refund. What if I like mess this whole thing up? I'm having a full conversation in my head. And what was interesting is I've noticed, as I've been getting more confident in what I know and being that channel of love, I'm realizing the information comes a lot closer to the moment than needing to plan ahead. So, when I first started doing my sessions, I would ask, close my eyes, meditate on the person that I was about to meet, 2 days from now. And I would say, what are the messages that I'm getting? And sometimes I'll get them as visual images. Sometimes they're words. Sometimes they're feelings that come through. So it's almost like you're watching a movie of someone else's life and you're starting to kind of download what is all the stuff that's coming through. So I would do this process like 2 days before the session because I'm like, I got to get something. I can't have nothing. And what I started to learn is as I continued moving forward, I would sit down, a day, 2 days before, and it would be nothing. I would get completely blank information. There would be nothing there. And then I would have to trust even more. Like if you go closer to the day, do you think something's going to come through? You got to trust yourself now. And it was almost like spirit was teaching me how to stay in that channel, because when you're in your channel, you're in presence. That's what you're in this moment. You're not in the past. You're not in the future. You're right here working with the energy that's in front of you. And so what's been really interesting is as I keep working with people and just show up in that moment, turn the Zoom on, someone I've never met before, I just ask spirit, show me what I need to help this person with. And the information will come in super quickly because I've surrendered the needing to be right or the needing to control. And that's a big piece about the entire awakening journey for anybody who's trying to go through this process is when we put expectation or pressure on how it needs to be, we are going to fail because we just can't handle that level of pressure, right? But as soon as we say, I have a sense of where I want to go. I think I know what this is going to feel like when I get there. Show me the steps. Show me what it looks like. And 90% of the women most of my clients actually tend to be women, because I just feel like a lot of women tend to be more on this process from an intuition standpoint. But you start to see that when you're co-creating that experience, it's just coming back to, you already know the answer. You're just got to trust yourself a bit more.
Sure.
What do you have to do? You mentioned being in presence and being in love and being in the heart center. Do you have any rituals? Do you have to, it's not just like flipping an internal switch, right? So like, what do you have to do to get yourself into that zone? Like what does that feel like? And then are there days like, like a musician that has a really good concert or an athlete that has a great game? Like I was really in my zone that day. Like, is that what it's like for you too?
Yeah, I mean, so one thing that a lot of people ask me, especially who are doing similar work or, in the healing work, is how do you maintain your energy? Like how do you clear your energy at the end of the day, and how do you not take on everyone else's stuff? But again, if you come back to this knowing, and this is quite like high level thinking, but if you come back to the knowing that everyone is you, then if someone triggers you in a session, what are they showing you about yourself is always what I will say. So for me, it's always about asking myself and asking my physical body, how can I be in the most present state to show up for this person that I'm here to support? So if I feel like I'm, super anxious, like what do I need to do? Do I need to go to the gym? Do I need to meditate for 20 minutes? Do I need to like brain dump all the stuff I'm thinking of so I can just clear the space for this person coming in? So it's really a process of not as much, good energy, bad energy, clearing that out, but asking yourself, if you imagine your energy as a battery and you've only got one battery in each day that you can give to whoever's in front of you, how do you help yourself to keep that battery as charged as possible and optimize how you're using it? And so it's really a personal experience of what are the things that are going to help you stay grounded, help you stay present? And if there is something that comes up that triggers you, how do you allow yourself to just let it go so that you can then show up for the next person that comes through and not bring that past baggage or energy into the next session?
Sounds like wonderful advice just for life.
Right.
Yes. I mean, I'm saying all this. Do I do it every day? Well, that's another story. However, that's my goal.
Yes, but we can all work towards, 100%.
So what are some of like, some sessions that you can recall and the detail that you can share. What happened? What really was meaningful to you? Like, a lot of us have never had an experience like this. We're fortunately going to have our first reading in a couple of weeks, and we're excited for that. But like a lot of people listening will have never been in one of these rooms. Will have never had the experience with a medium. So, what can you tell them about what it's like? And maybe the way to do that is through a couple examples.
Yeah. So typically the people that will come to me are either people that have lost someone who want to learn how to start to talk to them, or it will be people who are going through one of those pivot moments. So they're trying to switch their career or determine if they should stay in a marriage or figure out like their real purpose of what they're doing here. So, I mean, the sessions that I do with people that are trying to connect to their loved ones on the other side, one of the things that's really interesting, and I remember there was a woman that came and, she came and she wanted to get the messages. It was her husband that had passed, and she wanted to know like what he had to say and get all those little things that you see on TV where it's like, oh, like look for the gold watch. And when you hear the word the gold watch, that's how you're going to know it's me.
Oh, right.
And one of the things that I'm learning is that those things are all great, but they're not really helping you to heal the thing you're here to heal, which is to heal your heart, which is grieving, right? And so what we learned in that session together, and it was a process of her having this expectation and me needing to kind of step back and go, I understand why you want all of the special, symbols and things that you have in your mind and you want me to say them. But what would happen if I helped you just to connect with the energy of him right now? Would you be interested in that? Because ultimately, you are a medium. You're actually closer of a medium than I am because you know this person, right? And so really what I love teaching people, and it comes up in, all of these sessions, is you are the medium. I'm just here to help teach you how to do it because I learned how to do it from my mom. And so why can't you learn how to do it as well? So that was a moment because she came in with an expectation and then she left with something completely different, but actually something that would help her in the long run to then stay connected through those moments of grief. And then, there's always like incredible synchronicities and moments. Like I'll often use oracle cards at the end of the sessions. And, there are so many moments where people will come and they'll say, I want to connect with the energy of this person, or I'm thinking of this, thing I really want to do. And I'm thinking of a number. And when they pull the card, there's 45 cards in a deck. They pull the exact number that is the one that they had in their head. So it's just this reminder always that when you channel your intuition and your highest sense of knowing, you can get these synchronicities and these little gifts that present themselves to you in the form of these, I call them like wow stories, where you just want to tell everyone because like, oh my God, I'm going to tell you what happened. It's like the craziest thing. Like it's the craziest synchronicity, right? And those are the moments where I like validate myself a little bit. Not gonna lie, where it's like,
absolutely,
something will happen. I'm like, okay, I nailed it. Okay, keep going.
Yes.
But, there's a lot of people that just come and they get what they need, and it doesn't always have to be all the bells and whistles as well.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're channeling, what is that experience like physically, like in the body? What are you hearing something, or is it just like a knowing? Is it this gut feeling? Can you explain a little bit more what exactly is happening in the body when you're experiencing the channeling?
Yeah. This is a concept I teach in this course I lead called Amplify Your Intuition. And it's a question that so many people want to know is like, how do I become psychic? How do I start to become a medium?
Right.
You already are, but let's just clarify how you're going to do that. And so what you're talking about is they're called the clairs. So it's really this idea that we all have different senses and ways in which we receive and understand information. And so understanding which clair you're most connected to, so it's your sense of hearing, your sense of knowing, your sense of seeing, your sense of smelling, those are the ways that we start to connect in with the channel. So for me, clairaudience, which is my ability to just hear, I can hear source talking, but it's not my voice. So there's a very interesting distinction when you're hearing something and you realize it's not you, but it's coming through as if it is you. that was a big moment for me of starting to discern between, is this just the voice in my head that's my inner critic or my sense of, what I normally have in my head, or is it actually the source, the connection to my higher self, or the connection to my spirit guides, or the connection to my mother? And so it's almost, I will say to people, it's like tuning a radio. You're almost taking the radio. I remember when I started to connect with my mom on the other side, I started to want to talk to her and started to ask her questions about the journey that she'd been on and things that I never got to ask her as my mom. And it was almost this experience where you're hearing your own voice on a radio station, and then when you tune the dial, you can hear another channel. That's the experience that people will go through when they're trying to connect into what we call source or higher self or spirit guides. You're trying to tune your energy to a different frequency, and that will come in whatever way you interpret the information. So for me, it's often visual images I get, almost like a movie playing out, or I can hear it. For some people, they can smell. So oftentimes when people will sense someone from the other side, they'll smell like roses or the smell of tobacco or their cologne. Those are all also ways that people will often associate the other side or a higher being through their senses.
Was that something that for you, just, you realized you had this gift, or was it something that you worked at over time? I have to imagine, to your point, everybody has these abilities. It's just a matter of working to achieve that or get to that place. But there are some people that just experience this, I think, a little bit more naturally, and others that have to work at it a little bit more. So what was that like for you? And are there blocks that people need to be aware of when it comes to getting to this point if they're trying to get there and understand what their clairs are? I mean, how would they know? I mean, I'd love to know, what am I smelling things? Am I hearing things? How might a person try to get to that point?
Yeah. I always say, everything really is about your intuition and getting to know your intuition. And your intuition is like a friend, right? That you've had your entire life. And at some point, you can either listen to this friend that's there sitting beside you on your journey, or you can choose to ignore that friend. And the biggest thing that stops you from trusting your intuition, which is how we kind of feel, sense, know the world around us, is fear. Because there's part of us that will always believe, well, what if I'm not doing it right? What if I get it wrong? What if I see something and I actually don't want to see the thing that I'm getting myself prepared to actually look at on a deeper level? And so what I'll always say to people is it starts with curiosity. It starts with I'd love for you, when we get off this podcast, as you go through your day, start to notice how you're sensing things. So if you have an intuitive sense, I'm sure it comes with your son. I'm sure. As a mother, you have an intuition about how you know that he needs something without totally knowing. Sure. And you're going to know because you're going to hear it. So you might hear like, oh, don't do that. That's not a smart thing to do. Or you might just like see something about to happen and go, I got to prevent this before it happens. Those are really simple ways for you to start to connect with it, because you're actually doing it every day. You just don't realize you're doing it. So when I worked in the corporate world, I would always, and this is why a lot of marketing people end up going into doing this work, because they're already seeing the thing. They're already having, you look in advertising, a copywriter, an art director, they're already hearing the words. They're already seeing the visual of what the commercial is going to look like, right? But it's the language in which, when we move it to spirituality, it becomes this thing that we have to work our way to become, but actually we don't. It's really about, for me, when I connected with my mom on the other side, it was, well, do you want to connect with her? Like, do you really want to start to do this? Yes or no? And if you do, then love is the force that's going to drive you to get the answer. And then start to be curious about, if you ask her for a sign, go out in the world and see if you see it. Or ask her, what would she say about this situation, and see if you hear anything. And that curiosity is what starts the energy of understanding. And then you got to train. It's the muscle that you're building of noticing which senses are strongest and then allowing yourself to know that those are your strengths. So lean into them.
Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna, after we get off of this, I'm like, you don't even know, throughout my day, I'm gonna be like, okay, this is, Murphy. Although I tend to I feel like I hear him crying, in Murphy is our son's name. And I feel like all the things that you said, I'm like, yep, I'm constantly seeing into the future of when something is gonna hurt him and, avoiding that situation. I hear his cries when he's nowhere around,
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
I don't know.
And you know why that works is because what does he represent to you? He represents love, right? He represents the ultimate depth of love that a mother can have with a son, right? And so
totally.
That's why you're so attuned to it, because it's something that's really important to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love how you made it sound so simple, because it can be, it's kind of a light bulb moment for me. It's like, no, I can just port over what I experience every day. And for me, I experience it most directly in the creative act. And I know I have my own thoughts about creativity as a force. It seems kind of fundamental. It's connected to manifesting and all of that. So, where would you, and you see it most clearly, you mentioned advertising, as a copywriter or a designer, you see it. And when we were, sitting in our backyard, we had the idea for Disco the business, and it felt like just an immediate whole body yes, in a way that I have experienced very few times in my life. And it's that's a high I'm chasing. And so I guess the question I'm asking is, do you see what you do as part of the creative act or the creative principle, and where does creativity sit in terms of what it is we're all doing here?
Yeah, 100%. I think in essence, and this is something my partner Steve taught me a lot, because I was very much the person that was, well, I have to be a VP by 34. So what is the path I'm going to do to get there? How am I going to make enough money? How much money do I want to be making? And it's very cause and effect. Well, if I do this, this is the result I'm going to get, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When you come into this world, which is opening up to who you are, understanding your purpose, connecting to signs and synchronicities, talking to guides and higher beings on the other side. The entire process is about creativity, right? It's about allowing yourself to be in that energy of flow, the energy of surrender, of well, maybe if it doesn't work out exactly like this, it's okay. And if it turns out different than what I thought, maybe it's going to be better than what I thought. I don't know, but I guess we're going to find out. And so that energy of creativity, especially in the work that Steve and I do in Pause and Expand, and then also the work that I do as a medium, it's all creative, because I'm co-creating with my higher self, which is the version of Jennifer that doesn't have fear, that doesn't have any blocks, that doesn't have the judgment or the part of her that's saying you're not good enough or you can't do it, right? I'm co-creating with the part of me that is, you can do anything you want. So what do you want to talk about on the internet today? How do you want to help people, right? And the truth is, what's funny is, and this was my biggest secret that I never told anyone. And now I'm like, you know what, whatever, I'm just going to tell people. Most of the posts that I make, I don't actually do half the things myself. It's I'm almost telling myself to do that thing. It's like a higher energy of me that speaks. And then the human Jennifer's you got to listen to that girl. She's really empowered and knows what the hell she's talking about. And so oftentimes I'll listen to my videos and go, oh my God, I should try that thing. I'm going to do that today. But it's me.
Yeah.
Which is the exact proof of we're always co-creating with our higher energy, but how do you want it to look, right? Because people think that that's who I am in real life. That's just spoiler alert. That's not who I am in real life. I have all the human qualities of what we go through, like anger and fear and judgment and criticism and all the stuff, right? But what's really cool is when you realize you can create with that version of you. That's how the two of you came up with the idea to do Disco, by the way, is you started to work with the energy that was above you that said, here's what the two of you are going to do. Okay, go do that. Don't question it. Just do it. Right?
Yes. Yes. And first, so I love that you're sharing that, because to your point, it does prove that you're tapping into something that is even beyond you, you know, like there is Jennifer and then your higher self. And so I'm glad you're sharing that. It makes you seem so much more real and more honest. And I think that's great. And I think that for me, you saying that you're co-creating with your higher self, I feel like I'm on a team with somebody that is, you know, there to help and guide. And it's just a new way of putting something that I think I already knew, but is like resonating with me more. So thank you for that.
Yeah. That's a big piece about it too, right? This is another word that's completely overblown in the spiritual world, manifestation, right? Well, what is manifestation? It's the belief that you can create the reality that you desire, right? And so where does that begin? Well, it starts with you. It starts with the knowing that, well, do you believe you can have it? Like, do you believe that you can create this podcast and create this whole platform, or do you not, right? And so when you start to work with that higher energy, you get to be on the winning team, right? You're on the team that goes, well, I already know the two of you can do it. So just go and do it now. Stop worrying about what could happen or what could go wrong. And if we continue to stay in that energy of, okay, well, what does my higher self want me to know today? Then we allow ourselves to go through the human experience, but also remember there's actually another way to think about it. And it's probably going to remind you how much we spend sitting in fear and judgment and criticism of everything around us, right?
Yeah, I've got maybe a selfishly motivated question, but I know that anybody listening is somebody could be exactly like me. They're science educated, social science is my background. Like, I'm a reformed atheist. I have had an awakening. It kind of really started when I saw Michelle for the first time. There was just this, like, remember that, like, full
Sounds
body
right.
yes, like that I know. And so I'm like, what is that? Like, what? You know, and so then I've learned to recognize when that happens, and I followed it, and like I've been like, it's just more interesting to be a spiritual person. So I've been, you know, cracked open, and like, you know, here I am, disco podcast and disco company. I can say all that though, but I still can struggle sometimes to like fully believe in my body that like it's gonna be successful or I can do it. Like, because then my rational mind will go like, well, statistically, it's really hard to start a company, and you know, a lot of companies fail, and so you be prepared for that. You know, it might, you know, so it's like the step that I'm still working towards is fully embodying belief. And I'm just curious what advice you would have for me and anybody like me that's right there.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have to realize is that we chose to come here and be human and embody all of these feelings that come along with that, right? And so one of the biggest feelings that we're trying to overcome is the feeling of fear and doubt and self-judgment. And so actually, my partner and I just did this exercise on Friday. We were actually in an argument, and we were trying to like break the cycle of this argument that we repeatedly have the same argument over and over. And I'm sitting there going, this is stupid. Like, I can't fight with him like this anymore. And what we started to do, we played this game, and it was called like, what would your human self do? And then what would your higher self do? And so anytime I was getting ready to respond in my human self, like, well, Steve, what the hell are you doing? Like, why would you do that? I was like, well, what would my higher self do right now? What would she say? And the higher self was like, you know what, babe? That's a great point. Like, I really appreciate you bringing that up. I wonder if we could also do this. And he was like, yes, that's great. I love that. And I'm like, oh, it's working. And so what I learned in that process, and I've been trying to do it this week even, is when you start to channel the version of you, like make it up, pretend like this version of you exists until it is who you are, right? So I think that the advice I would have for you, Zach, is you already know that your higher self is guiding you here, right? You already know. You already got the download. You got the feeling in you. You've already had this knowing inside of you. Like, when you trust the path, you don't actually need to know how it's going to happen. You just got to trust the next step. And that's the biggest thing that has made me the success that I've been able to have is I don't sit and plan out 29 posts ahead. I'm like, okay, well, Tuesday's the day I'm going to record my content. What's going on in my life right now that I really want to talk about that feels like really real for me? And you're going to know if it's your authentic self or if it's yourself trying to get validation or make it good, because you just feel the energy of it. You're going to feel inside yourself, well, this doesn't feel like me. This doesn't feel like what I really want to do. And you got to check yourself in those moments and then come back to the part of you that's like, okay, let's just relax for a minute here. We don't have to solve all the world's problems right now. But what we do need to do is ask our higher self and our like best version of us, what is my next step when it comes to disco, right? What is my next step when it comes to my self-improvement journey that I'm on, or my plant medicine experiences? Do I need to keep doing that? Or maybe there's another modality that would work for me, right? So when you think about it like that, you're meeting it in the moment versus like the roadmap that's got the GPS all laid out. You're just following the next turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, love it. Yeah, make it sound so, I feel empowered. And I'm a little proud of myself too, because I was
You should be proud of yourself. Tell me why.
Planning trying to do a summer trip with my friends, and they know I've been a little scared and fear-based in my life, and there was like a dirt bike component, and they're like, Zach, how do you feel about that? I'm like, I replied, my higher self rides a dirt bike. Because it's like, I was like, no, I don't, really? I don't want to do this actually. I'm afraid, but I know that my higher self is somebody that rides a dirt bike, and like, and I got into a cold plunge the other day. That. Like, I didn't want to get into the cold plunge. I'm like, just do it. So like, I'm just trying to do a lot of hard things, you know? And so I think, yeah.
So how did it feel after you went in the cold plunge? Like, what was the result of that experience for you?
I stayed in it almost a minute. I was pretty proud of myself.
I was super impressed.
And so here's the next part of that is, when your higher self shows you something, sometimes it's to teach you a lesson. Sometimes it's to keep, get you on a new ritual or routine. So then in that moment, when you complete whatever it is you've done, like you ride the dirt bike or you go in the cold plunge, maybe you ride the dirt bike and you're like, I hate this. I never want to do this again. But you know what I proved to myself? That I can ride a damn dirt bike, right? That's what I was here to prove. And I can do things that I think I'm not capable of doing. So those are the moments after to go, how did that make me feel? And what was I here to learn from that experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. I mean, you described our MasterChef experience quite well there too. That's exactly what it was like.
Yeah, exactly.
We haven't talked about pause and expand, so I would like to get into that. Like, how do you do everything you're doing in the corporate world compared to what you just said? It's like, I can see I'm here to create shareholder value, not like talk to my grandpa, like, so how?
Yes. Yes, totally. Which I have an interesting story about that, by the way. So we started, I started kind of delving in, I would say dipping my toe in through pause and expand, because it was a very safe bridge to go from, well, I'm already a corporate person, so let me just start doing corporate well-being in the world that I was just sitting in. So when Steve and I started to do our work together, there was a lot of vulnerability in that. I'm working with my partner. I am showing up in places as a different version of myself. But we realized that the two of us together have all of this wisdom in helping people, ourselves, ultimately to slow down. We knew the corporate world needed that, and we knew the moment was right around that pandemic milestone. And so what we've been learning through pause and expand is that people are actually just people, right? So we go in, we're the global wellness team for Adobe corporate. And we'll go into Adobe. We go in every week for 30 minutes on a Monday. We started with maybe 15 people in a massive organization. We started with 50 people. And we're like, okay, hopefully we can get more. Like, hopefully more people will come one day. And we started creating a safe space in the chat as we're sitting in the 30-minute meeting, and we started asking them questions. And then some of them started answering. And then we kept going and more of them started answering. And then we realized, oh, this is a game of making people feel safe. Because once you make people feel safe, anything is possible from that moment. So now we come into, a 30-minute meditation. This just happened last week, and took them through a guided visualization. We do sound baths as well. So we had that component all through your headphones virtually. And we were asking them a few questions in this visualization. Like, I want you to think of someone, could be dead or alive, that you'd like to have coffee with right now, and go and see them sitting in the coffee shop with you. And I want you to just ask them, like, what would you tell me if you were, what would be the wisdom you have for me? And I would say 80% of people that were in that session picked someone that was dead. Like a family member. And what was also crazy is they were all feminine. It was either grandmothers or mothers or people that were feminine on that side of their lineage. And we got out And there was a few people that emailed us was like, how did that even happen? Like, did you guys plan that? And I'm like, no, this is just what happens when you tap in and you actually channel as a community. And so what we're learning through Pause and Expand, we're going into big companies, medium-sized companies, doing sound baths and visualizations, helping people to slow down and bring more awareness, is that when you create that curiosity of, here's the science of why we do sound, here's what's happening to your brainwaves. We're going to slow you down. Now you go into the experience and you tell us what you feel like on the other side. They come out and they're like, I saw purple, I saw green. Like, what does that mean? Like, I saw my dead, dog. Like, why is he there? Like, there's so many questions that people have, right?
Yeah.
So it's been cool because I'm learning that what I get to do now on the medium side, like there's a lot more corporate people that are curious about that, but you need to know the language. So, you're not going to go in and say, we're going to do a seance right now in the middle of a boardroom. but
I mean, I wish we would. Like, can we not?
One day that'll happen and you will be invited. But you can go in and say, okay, well, we're going to take you through a visualization. Here's the reason why. Here's the science. Athletes and CEOs are doing it, let's just try it out and see if you can change your day. And then let them figure out if they want to come through the door and ask you what they saw, right?
Right. Well, I think that there's so much room in that space for this. And it's very obvious that there's a deep desire for it, whether or not you even realize it. But once you're in that room, it's tapped into and it's like, oh yeah, this feels right. So I just think that's incredible. I want to make sure that we're linking to Pause and Expand. So if anybody wants to work with you guys, that they know how to do that.
And I feel it like, since having my awakening and being a more spiritual person, like it informs my brand strategy work. Like there's no separation. And so like, I'm often arguing with like very materialist, rationalist people. And I'm like, will you just trust me on this one? Like there is no separation. And so I think it's an amazing thing to help people that turn that on and use it in business. Because again, I've come to realize like business and money making, it's not like anti-spirituality. It's a creative act as well. You're co-creating, we're all evolving this thing together. And like, a primary form that takes is a business enterprise.
Totally. And it's funny because, we market ourselves as we're here to cultivate well-being at work. That's what we do, right? So we're the point for companies that are looking for a Wellness Friday or an offsite retreat, or that's the gateway in. But it's interesting because lately I've been getting requests from women in executive positions to teach them about intuition. Like they want to know, how do I tap into this power that I have? And it's just coming from videos I'm sharing on LinkedIn about my own, I basically will take a video from my social media and I'll put it on LinkedIn. And then now people are reaching out asking me, well, can you teach us? Like we're doing a group of women. Can you come in and teach us about intuition? I'm like, yeah, of course. I'd love to. And if you can give them the language that makes them feel safe, then they'll figure out what their next question is. And then the door keeps opening, right?
Yeah. That's such a strong signal of a future, a broader awakening, So just by way of closing here, like what are you sensing about our kind of collective future and our collective social awakening? Like I know it's almost a cliche, people that have had an awakening and spiritual people like, oh yeah, it's coming, we're all gonna be, and I feel that and I sound like that. And I worry that I sound crazy to people that just are just not in that lane. So just curious your take as we end here. What's coming?
So, I feel like we're at a very big turning point, inflection point in humanity right now, right? We're seeing the rise of AI. We're seeing the demise of the corporate world the way that we saw it. We're seeing politics in a whole other world than we would have ever imagined even 5 years ago. And what it's asking us all to do is come back to ourselves. So like cut the noise. There's going to be more noise than ever before on the news channels, on social media, anywhere you look. what is important to you and how are you going to step into the reason why you as a human are here? And what I'm learning is that these moments of fear and chaos and, everyone's worried now about money and money problems. They're all here to ask you to ask yourself the deeper questions, like what actually matters to you and what is the story you're going to subscribe to and which one are you not going to subscribe to? And ultimately, if you come back to this knowing that you are creating your reality, then we all have a role to play in the awakening of what's going on. But we can't get so wrapped up in, well, this news cycle said this and, so-and-so's doing this. We have to come back to, what are you doing?
Right.
How are you showing up? And then who are the people in your immediate circle that you can impact today through the work that you're doing? And it's been so cool because with social media, it's a double-edged sword, right? So you can have, this incredible success, and then it's like a rabbit hole of doom that basically sits on the other side of that. And what I'm learning is that when I make an effort to connect with people, so you'll see like I'll always go in and respond to people, and people will share these incredible stories of loss and awakening with me through the comments. If I can keep that engagement and that connection with those people, then I've done my job, right? Because all people want is a space to feel seen and a space to feel that they're not alone. As a collective, we're being asked to go deeper on that level of what do we really want to be and how do we continuously come back to love? And this is that moment where all facets of our lives are being tested and we have to just stay connected to our own being and our own knowing.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I feel like I've found myself in that, a position I think that probably everybody is feeling with the amount of information that's just out there and coming at you in different directions. It's hard to know what's true, what's not, what's right, what's wrong. Being a mom, don't do this, do that. And it's really forcing me, and I think everybody, to look within and start answering your own questions for yourself versus looking out and feeling the overwhelm of all the information, misinformation that's happening all around us, to remember who we are at our core.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important message. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
And I feel more equipped to do that after talking to you.
Your higher self is in charge, Zach.
Yes.
Thank you
From
so
this
much,
day
Jennifer.
forward. Thank you so much. It was so great talking to both of you. And I'm so excited to see where this goes for you. I can feel the energy of it. There's big things coming. So it's not just MasterChef. So get ready. Get ready for the future.